The Lemon brand of cymbals are even more popular now than they were months ago when I reviewed their 15-inch cymbals. If you didn't catch that review, feel free to go check it out, but I will be touching on some of the same points in this review of the Lemon 18-inch triple zone ride cymbal. First things first though, is this cymbal the size that they say it is? So close. Hey, welcome back to the eDrum Workshop. I'm Luke and I hope you're having a great day. So, exact dimensions aside, it's not that surprising that these Lemon cymbals have been gaining so much traction in the eDrum community. These things are cheap and now they're making sizes that people have been asking for a long time. The cost of one of these 18-inch ride cymbals plus delivery to me in England was only £89 in total, and nearly half of that cost was the shipping. The cymbal itself only cost about £49, and fortunately I didn't have to pay any extra when it arrived on these shores. Like with the 15-inch versions, I ordered mine directly from the supplier on Alibaba, but unlike the 15-inch cymbals, you can order these ones individually rather than having to order at least two. I personally chose the slightly quicker delivery option and it arrived within about a week. It's less than quarter of the cost of an 18-inch ATV cymbal or the Roland Digital Ride in the UK. And of course, with the Digital Ride, you're limited to only the TD-50X, TD-50 or TD-27 modules. If you're not up for ordering these directly from Alibaba, I know that some people have been ordering these in bulk and then selling them on Facebook groups or eBay. But if you do choose to go in that direction, be prepared to potentially spend more money. And these cymbals are also being made by another company called Oriental Gears. From everything that I've seen, they're the exact same cymbal, so that's another option too. Although these cymbals are cheap, they do feel pretty solid in the hand, and that's very fortunate because the packaging that it arrived in left a lot to be desired. I forgot to mention this in the last review, but they basically just come in a box with no padding, which seems pretty risky considering the journey. The box was a little bit roughed up, so I'd like to see a little bit of packaging material, but the cymbal itself was completely unscathed, so I suppose I can't really complain. And the build quality is pretty good for the price too. They're definitely not the lowest quality items that you can find on the market. I'd probably pitch them somewhere around the mid-range in terms of quality and feel, maybe even more pushing towards the higher end of the mid-range. Yeah, they're not up there with the best, but they definitely don't feel as tacky as the price would suggest. Now, of course, how well these will hold up over years remains to be seen. However, I have been using one of my 15-inch Lemon cymbals as a hi-hat for a couple of months now as a sort of stress test, and apart from the usual stick markings and general wear and tear that you get on pretty much any cymbal, it seems to be holding up really well at the moment. The rubber on these cymbals seems like pretty decent quality. It's not the thickest, but it does have a slight sparkle to it which helps elevate the aesthetics a little bit. On the 15-inch versions that I previously purchased, there were a couple of spots on the rubber where it didn't feel like it was completely stuck down, and there was also a bit of a gap between the rubber and the cymbal on the bell zone. On the 18-inch version that I've bought, this doesn't seem to be the case. Now, I don't know whether that's just a quality control issue. I've not really seen a lot of other people say that they've had that issue with any of their cymbals. Unfortunately, it didn't really greatly affect the playability. On the underside of the cymbal, there's the plastic jack box with two inputs, ride 1 for the bow and edge and ride 2 for the bell, and it does have this slightly annoying plastic lip around the underneath edge. This is something that I'm not a huge fan of, and I was kind of hoping that maybe they would have changed it out on the new size. However, it is just a bit of a nitpick because it's never actually affected the playability or got in the way while I've been choking the cymbals or anything like that. And these cymbals also come with a cutout for a Roland style rotation stopper, so that's pretty handy. All in all, this is just a larger version of the other cymbals that they offer, and really that's all anybody was probably after. Another thing that I need to mention, as with the other sizes of these Lemon cymbals, some people have found that the edge and the bell zones are reversed, so when the bell is played it triggers the edge and vice versa. There is a simple fix fix that you can do by taking off the bottom plastic ring and swapping the connector from one side to the other, as I showed on my last review. With my Cymbal on Roland modules, this wasn't the case. If I connect ride 1 to the bow and edge input or the ride input, and ride 2 to the bell input, it functions exactly as it should as a 3-zone ride. Of course, on the TD-50X, the TD-50 and the TD-27, you can't use this as a 3-zone ride alongside the digital ride, but it does function perfectly fine as a 2-zone cymbal if you just connect up the ride 1 jack to any other stereo input. However, unfortunately, both this 18-inch version and the 15-inch versions that I bought in the past have the reversed bell and edge problem on the Pearl Mimic Pro. I'm really not quite sure why this happens, because it seems to work completely fine on a Roland module as if it's their wiring, and the Pearl Mimic Pro perfectly supports Roland cymbals, so logically you would think that there wouldn't be any issues here. On the flip side though, when I connect this up as a 2-zone crash cymbal, it works perfectly fine the original way round. So yeah, this is a bit weird and it's definitely a negative. However, it is one of those kinds of negatives that personally I can overlook because of the price. Playability wise, these things trigger really well. I've tested it out on my Roland TD-50X, my TD-27 and my TD-17, and on all three of those it worked pretty much right off the bat using the CY-15R preset, though I did have to reduce the sensitivity a little bit because they are quite hot. And it also works really well as a 2-zone crash using either the same preset or one of the Roland crash cymbal presets. On the Pearl Mimic Pro, once I did the mod, it worked really well using a Roland preset. The edge switch triggers reliably and it chokes really easily, and the bell zone works pretty well too. The bell response isn't 100% perfect right down to the lowest dynamics, but personally I never really found it to be an actual issue while I was playing, and it does seem to be a little more accurate than the 15-inch ones that I own. And to be honest, none of the major brands have really completely nailed this on their analog cymbals either, as I'll demonstrate now. If I had one other criticism about the bell, it's that it's a shame it's not a little bit bigger than it is on the 15-inch cymbal, and I do wish that it was a little bit more raised. On the flip side, the diameter of the bell isn't really much smaller than Roland or ATV's 18-inch cymbals. They're all in the 4.5 to 5-inch range, and I don't really have any issues with theirs, but the Lemon Cymbal's bell is notably more shallow. The Roland and ATV bells are raised up a fair amount more, and I find that this really helps when aiming for it if you're rocking out. Once again, this will kind of come down to personal preference and playing style. If you mostly play the bell with the tip of your stick, you're probably not going to run into any issues. However, most of the time I personally use the shoulder of my stick to hit the bell. If you have your cymbal on more of an angle, again, you might not notice this. I tend to play with my ride cymbal quite flat, so it was slightly awkward to aim for, but it's not like I was missing it all the time or anything like that. Under the stick, it does feel pretty nice to play on. It is a slab of plastic coated in rubber, so it is always going to feel like an electronic cymbal. It doesn't give as freely as the ATV cymbal, which is to be expected because the ATV cymbals are very thin, and the Roland ride does feel a bit more natural to play on too because the rebound and the swing are nicer. The Lemon cymbal feels a fair bit clunkier when you hit it, especially on the edge compared to the premium options, but the difference in feel is nowhere near as big as the difference in price. And if you're used to acoustic sizes or acoustic cymbals, you kind of expect your average ride cymbal to feel meatier under the stick than your average crash cymbal, so it's not like it feels jarring or unnatural when it's this way. There is unfortunately a slight hot spot near the bell. You can avoid it pretty easily or position the cymbal so that you don't hit it directly, but it is right about here. In terms of volume, it's very comparable to pretty much any other rubber electronic ride cymbal pad that I've used. It's maybe a tiny bit louder and a touch more low pitched than some of the other electronic cymbals on the market, but we're really talking fractional amounts, and I don't think that you would notice any difference at all if you had headphones on or just generally in a playing environment. One thing that I forgot to test on my last review was the positional sensing. Roland's analog ride pads like the CY-15R support positional sensing when you're using their modules. This detects as you're getting closer to the bell or closer to the edge and changes the sound accordingly. Unfortunately, positional sensing doesn't work properly with the Lemon cymbals. For the most part, I was getting the exact opposite of what I should have been getting, and other times it just seemed to be a little bit random, and it didn't really seem to matter which preset that I chose for it either. But I can't really hold this against the Lemon cymbals because it doesn't work properly with any other cymbals that I've tried either, other than Roland's on their own modules. However, if you're using a module that doesn't support positional sensing, or you're using a VST that doesn't support it, this isn't really going to be an issue at all. I also tried this out on my eDRUMin 10, and it worked great using the 2 inputs on the 3-zone ride setting. I just needed to bring down the gain. And it also worked great as a 2-zone cymbal using that input type with 1 cable. Unfortunately though, I couldn't get it to work with the bell sense function. So all in all, I think the Lemon 18-inch cymbals are really good. They're a brilliant option for anybody that wants a larger playing surface for a great price. It triggers really well, it's a good size, and it's cheap. What's not to love? If you're looking for a low-cost ride cymbal upgrade for your electronic kit, I highly recommend giving one a go. If you enjoyed this review or found it useful in any way, please pop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more electronic drum related content, and don't forget to check out my store over at the eDrumworkshop.com for new kits or samples for your electronic drum module. And above all, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!